Assalamu alaikum and welcome back once again. So we'll continue in this part the task 2 which we started in the previous video. So if you remember, we're talking about logistics and supply chain, and there I ended with the types of supply chains. So we'll continue the description of supply chain and the remaining activities. So in this video you're going to understand further to the previously studied material the types of supply chains, supply chain management processes, supply chain risks, portals, value chain model, and value chain analysis. So let us have a look at the types of supply chain which we discussed earlier. So here under this classification you can say that supply chain can be considered as direct supply chain, where between the supplier and the customer there are not many organizations. There's a single organization here. So the supply chain is very short. Okay, supplier is supplying to the customer through one intermediary or a single intermediary, that is this organization. The other supply chain can be extended supply chain, where you look at not only the supplier, organization, customer. These are three entities, but you also look at other entities upstream like supplier, supplier, or supplier, supplier, supplier upstream, or you look at customers, customers, customer, and customers, customers, customer downstream. It can go up to any extent. So that is called extended supply chain. And the third concept here is called ultimate supply chain, which is more than the extended supply chain. Why? Because it not only has the upstream and downstream links, but also links with other parties, entities like third party logistics suppliers or financial services provider or market research services provider. So when you look at multiple entities, upstream, downstream, and parallel, horizontal, that supply chain can be called ultimate supply chain. So now we will talk about the purpose of supply chain. On the basis of purpose, supply chain can be classified as efficient supply chains. These supply chains are primarily concerned with reducing the cost of operations, as in lean supply chains. Lean means when you use very little resource and you want to accomplish a particular task by using minimum amount of resources. So if you use resources minimally, that means efficiency comes in your supply chain. And according to purpose, another type of supply chains can be called responsive supply chains, and they are primarily concerned with minimizing the delivery cycle time. So they want to respond fast. Like a customer is ordering for some item, so it doesn't mean that efficiency is important only, but sometimes time, how fast you can respond to the critical need of the customer, you need responsive supply chains for that purposes. Like in medical health, when you are supplying heart, from one hospital to other hospitals for transplantation. That means you don't need efficient supply chains, but you need responsive supply chains because time is very critical for them, not the cost only. Then comes product. On the basis of product, supply chains can be of different types. Products are of different types accordingly. Even services, we call them products. So accordingly, supply chains differs according to end products. So you can talk about, like last slide I gave you example of Vale steel, it makes a steel, so its product is different. Then if you look at some like Orpic OQ, so their product is totally different. So they are not dealing with solid, they are dealing with liquid and gas. So their supply chains will be different. And similarly, retail and distribution supply chains, which you are familiar with, you see what was the raw material comes in where to suppliers, suppliers process it, and then it comes to others, suppliers, and from suppliers come to suppliers, it comes to organization it goes to customers, then it goes to customers. So like when you talk about retail and distribution chain, they are probably one of the longest chain they form, because you never know the origin of a product from where it is coming to Oman. Then comes the value chains. Supply chains are also called value chains because they build value. Every moment, every activity which they support, they add value. It may be time value, it may be place value, it may be, uh, manufacturing value or other things. But value chains always add values. So here in this slides, we are covering supply chain management in terms of 8 processes. So if you want to look at supply chain management and what are the main activities that organizations need to perform, so you can start from here. One on the left, that is product development and commercialization. Every company manufacture a product and then it commercialize it, means to sell it or makes it available to customers for sale. Okay, then at the same time, they manage supplier relationship. In order to make that product, they need suppliers and they need to manage those suppliers. Manufacturing flow management, when they are manufacturing, how the material parts, components, they are flowing from one place to other place in the factory, that has to be done or managed. Order fulfillment, like when customers order and marketing receives those order, they inform to production. Production produces things and again supplies the final goods to the customers through marketing. So that is order fulfillment, when the order is delivered to the customer. Demand management, like customers, they have demand. So these demands are to be forecasted and accordingly a master production schedule has to be produced by the production people. So all these fall in the area of demand management. Customer service management, so you need to provide customer lots of services regarding information, regarding payment, regarding other sort of transactions and so on. So there is a whole lot of activity which is done under that. Customer relationship management. So when we talk about supply chain management, basically supply chains, they are related, they are linked, they are related to each other. That means there is a relationship between one party and other party. So that has to be managed for best of the outputs. So that is covered under customer relationship management. And returns management, the final activity, eighth process. That means, as I told you before in the earlier lecture slides, that there's a term called reverse logistics. What it supports? It supports returns management. If some product was not found suitable or was not fit for purpose, was faulty, or has been used, overused, and discarded for as a scrap, so all these has to be returned to the upstream suppliers. So that is covered under returns management. So supply chains are difficult to manage. They have vulnerability, there are risks associated with supply chain. You have already seen in corona period how many companies, they suffer, they could not get raw material, parts or other things which they wanted from China, or which they depended on China. So this is was one of the risks. So similarly, Cranfield, it has given a concept of 5 categories of supply chain risks. The first is lack of ownership. So when you are a partner, when you work in a chain, it happens in a family also. When you don't own, certain things, so that you pass on the blame to others. So similarly, it may happen in the supply chain that organizations may blame to supplier for some mishappening, or supplier may blame to its supplier or organization may blame to customers. So that is lack of ownership sort of risk. Chaos risks. Chaos may happen when the things are not clear or sudden volatility is there in demand or something, suddenly demand increased. So multiple parties, multiple orders, they are made and you are dealing with multiple parties. So it becomes sometimes difficult to manage communication and other things. So it may lead to chaos risk. Decision risks when organizations are unable to take decisions on time, and the lack quality of information, then decision risks may affect supply chains. JIT relationship risk, JIT you'll study in the fourth task. That is just in time. It's one type of inventory management philosophy which goes against against the philosophy of building inventories. So those organizations which follow just in time, they are in very close relationship with their suppliers. So that type of risk are always there when one organization depends that on other supplier that and it is not holding enough inventory for production of its goods, then there are different types of risk involved. Then comes inertia risk. Sometimes when we need responsive supply chains and we don't want to change, we want to do the same thing in a similar way, and we are not learning or we are not understanding how critical is the demand. So those risks are called inertia risks when we treat things with the same way and we don't want to change or learn from situation. So here are 10 ways of managing supply chain risks, how organizations which are dealing in logistics and supply chains can manage their supply chain risks. They can diversify their activities. They can stockpile, means build inventories of things to manage uncertainties of demand. Redundancy, sometimes they need to do two things, unnecessarily one more things as a safe process, like aeroplane has two engines, one only one engine works at a time, but one engine is kept, though it is costly, but redundancy is sometimes needed when the things are critical, operations are critical. Insurance to hedge against any sort of losses, unforeseen circumstances. Supplier selection, by carefully selecting the supplier, organizations can minimize the risks. Supplier development, by developing the supplier also, organization can minimize the risks. Contractual obligations, sometimes they write clearly in the contract when they buy something from suppliers that you have to do this, you have to do these things. It's your liability. Okay, so then that means you are hedging the risk by writing it in a formal contract so that anything goes wrong on that side, other parties will be responsible. Collaborative initiatives, sometimes organizations start collaborating, they do things as a whole, as a sister concern, so that makes the risk less. Rationalization of the product range. So when you deal with multiple products, you need multiple parts in order to make those products, and then chaos will be high. So in that cases, you can rationalize the things, you can limit it, you can have selected range of products so that you don't create any risks there. And localized sourcing, sourcing means buying from local. Local means Omani organizations or organizations in Oman buying from organizations nearby in Oman or inside Oman. Localization. It is very important. In country value is the concept which most of the organization in Oman practices. And according to the government rule, certain percentage of the purchase by big companies have to be made by from local companies. So this is localized sourcing, which is applicable in case of Oman also. So now we will come to a very interesting topic which is very well familiar, very well known, and that is called Porter's value chain model. Before going to Porter's value chain model, I would like to explain what is value chain. So supply chain sometimes are considered value chains. They are synonymous in many ways, you can say. So a value chain is a linear map. Linear map means when you can put things in line, first, second, third, how the things are passing from one to other. So value chain is a linear map of the way in which Value is added by means of a process from raw materials to finished goods, including service after delivery. So you can think of any organization like car manufacturers, or how raw material came to the car company, what happened next, what process happened next, what process happened next, and what value these processes added. So this is, you will be able to make a linear map. You can say post 1, post 2, post 3, post 4, or this way you can say what is happening in post 1, post 2, post 3, post 4, so that you will make a value chain for a car manufacturer. Okay, so it is very important to map a value chain, to do value chain analysis, which we will study later. So you will analyze which are the activities or processes in the value chain are not adding value. If they are not adding value, then we don't need them. So you can remove those processes which are not. So that is the concept of value chain analysis, which we will touch in brief as a final slide. So now let us come back to Porter's value chain model. Porter's value chain model talks about two types of activities: primary activities and support activities. So organizations, they perform two types of activities, and primary activities are those activities which are directly related to manufacturing of products and services. And support activities are those activities which support the primary activities. So according to Porter, there are five primary activities: inbound logistics, operations, outbound logistics, marketing and sales, and service. And according to Porter's value chain model, there are four support activities: from infrastructure, human resources, technology development, and procurement. So we will talk in detail about these activities. So here is the diagram, and how Porter's supply chain model can be portrayed by the diagram. So you can see primary and support activities there. And on the right side, you will see the profit margin, that is the aim. And you can see in this diagram, upstream means the before the organizations, what comes, and downstream means towards the customer. So here we talk about primary activities, all activities which are linked to receiving, handling, and storing inputs into the production system, including warehousing, transport, and stock control. They are called inbound logistics. That is the first type of primary activities. Like when you are making something, suppose Valley Steel is making steel, pellets they make of small, small balls of irons. So they bring what? They bring the ore, iron ore from Brazil. It comes in big, big ships. Can you see the ship picture in the last slides, or by visiting the Vale company's website? So all those activities which are involved in bringing the iron ore from Brazil to receiving it here in the jetty of Vale and storing it in its open area there, that is all inbound logistics. Operations, what are operations here? All activities which are involved in the transformation of inputs into outputs as the final products. So when the big mold of earth or the iron ore brought from Brazil, when they are put into furnace and they are burnt, and when the steel is made after reducing these things, that is called operations of Vale. Then outbound logistics, activities involved in moving the output from operations to end user. Any activity after pallets have been built by Vale, it is steel, that is now they are moving it maybe to Al Jazeera Steel, or maybe they are storing it inside first and then to distributors for Middle East, maybe in Dubai, wherever they supply, that operations, those operations related to that, they are known as outbound logistics. So outbound logistics happens because of marketing and sales, because marketing people, sales people, they bring orders to the companies. So they are involved in activities like in informing potential customers about product and convincing them, persuading them to buy the product. So unless they convince the customers, how outbound logistics will happen? How demand will come to the company? How they will then do order fulfillment? So between demand and order fulfillment, outbound logistics plays the role. And then comes the services. So services are activities that are involved in the provision of services to buyers, and they are offered as a part of purchase agreement. So there are many services that organizations have to give to the buyers when they purchase things. They are all mentioned what services organizations will provide in the purchase agreement. Now we talk about the support activities. So we have already discussed about the primary activities, and here the support activities. Without proper support, primary activities may not happen well. So what do primary activity needs in order to be successful? That is defined by support activities, and four support activities are firm infrastructure, human resource management, technology development, and procurement. So firm infrastructure or general administration includes activities, costs, and assets relating to general management, safety and security, MIS, and formation of strategic alliances. So all those activities which are related to cost and assets and general administration, which support general administration, MIS, management information system, like this network, computer network of the organizations connected internally and externally. All these things are covered here. Human resource management, so you're very well, you know this, because without human resources, you will not be able to manufacture anything, supply anything. So human are needed everywhere, skilled employees. So human resource management takes care of that. Technology development, so you need to have technology in order to be efficient producer. So all those activities which are related to product design, improvement of production processes, and the utilization of the resources, they all fall under technology development. Then comes procurement. Procurement means purchasing, which you are studying as this subject. All the activities which are involved in acquiring resources, inputs, material, anything. Supplies means for the organizations to produce. They are, produce means primary activities, production. So they are procurement activities. So purchasing departments does the procurement. Unless it does, main activities, that is, cannot be performed. Primary activities cannot be performed. Okay, and you have seen in that diagram the margin on the right hand side you saw, and these figures indicates that the enterprise obtains profit margin after doing primary and support activities, and it should be more than the cost of each of the individual activities. Whatever margin they get, it should be more than, it should cover the cost of individual activities that they have been doing. So next, this is the practical insight that I would like to share with you. This is coming in the form of a reading material. Please go through it. It is available in the recommended reading material. This is a case of Starbucks. Once you read this, you will know exactly the Porter's value chain model and how it applies in the case of Starbucks. What are primary activities and what are support activities as it applies for Starbucks. And this will give you a good insight. So this is the final slide here, and the value chain are so important, whether they are efficient or whether they are demand responsive or whether their scope is whatever they are supporting, product or services, whatever big they are or small they are, direct or extreme, you know. So all these value chains need proper optimization. If they are not optimized, the cost, every process will not add value to it, and it will be difficult for organizations to compete. So value chain analysis basically is a process which is concerned with a detailed examination of each subsystem in a supply chain. In a supply chain, one subsystem may be like supplier, then organization, and then buyer. So it makes a subsystem where they are connected. And every activity within these subsystems with a view to delivering maximum value at least possible total cost. the cost of processes should be minimum or least, thereby enhancing value and synergy throughout the entire chain. So it doesn't mean that organization is gaining and it is gaining at the cost of supplier, or organization is gaining at the cost of customer. So it will not survive longer. So here we need a synergy. We need win-win situation between every partner in the supply chain so that they work, they take ownership of what they work, and they try to prevent every type of supply chain risks. Okay. So according to Porter, there are two ways in which an enterprise can obtain a sustained competitive advantage, and they are cost and differentiation. So value chain analysis is done in order to fulfill these two major aims. Either you can be the lowest cost producer or provider, that means you are focusing on the cost, or you can differentiate your supply chain on the basis of quality, in the basis of response, on the basis of other things. So that is superiority, something which you build your brand, that sort of thing, and you differentiate that you are different than other competitors. So on that basis also value chain analysis is done. So thank you very much. These are the references. You can go back to your learning material. There's one more section, boost your understanding. It is there. You can further refer to that. It's easy to follow on your tabs, on your mobiles, on your other devices. So with this, we come to task 2, end, and you are expected to go through all the materials for a better learning. So thank you once again. Take good care of these material and boost your understanding. We'll meet you in the next task. Stay safe wherever you are. Ramadan Kareem to all of you. Thank you.